print there?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
I'm just looking for the clicker. It was on that table. Did you pick up the clicker?
I don't know, you want the clicker? I can do that. Yep.
I can get it for you, it's on your desk.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for Community High School District 94 on February 1st at 7 p.m. Penny, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Penny. And Rich, can you read the mission statement, please?
Community High School strives to promote and provide growth experiences in learning, leadership, and living.
Thank you. And Cheryl, roll call?
Mr. Brown. Ms. Casey Mayer.
Present.
Mr. Ramus.
Present by phone due to medical reasons.
Ms. Munoz.
Present.
Mr. Nagle.
Present.
Mr. Safe.
Present. By a phone due to medical.
Mr. Zuniga.
Present.
Thank you. Now for public participation, this is a portion of our meeting where any member of the public can address the Board of Education. Presentations are limited to no more than 5 minutes per person with a total time of 30 minutes for public participation. Due to legislative restrictions on what boards can or cannot comment on, the board does not engage in dialogue during public participation, but will listen to concerns and, where appropriate, direct the administration to follow up. Okay, I have one person so far for public participation, Cheryl Moore.
I'm more on the agenda as number 3. Thank you.
FYI, I'm being told that people can't hear you, Miss Casey Mayer, so.
You can't hear me?
I can, but I'm telling you, people who are live streaming cannot hear you, so.
Oh,
Okay. Good evening. I have 2 public comments. The first is related to the new Dean of Student position that the board approved 2 weeks ago. A member of the community or a parent who reads your minutes will think that you are going to have 3 dean positions next year. You currently have 2 deans. You approved 1, so 2 plus 1 equals 3. However, the problem is that the board and the staff know that this is just not true. Why are the community members and parents being told something different than the board and the staff? Per your board policy 3:50, and I'll read the policy for you, the general duties and authority of each administrative or supervisory position are approved by the board upon the superintendent's recommendation and contained in the respective position's job description. So what should have happened at the last board meeting was that Dr. Chang should have presented his reorganization of the administration, which includes a new position for an assistant principal to oversee the facilities, not a new dean position. The public and the staff should have been provided the job descriptions and the positions with those new responsibilities. And the real new position should have been approved. Now, I know you as a board, you do not live in policy. You're supposed to operate at a high level. So I don't expect you to know that, but Dr. Chang, your superintendent and your HR director should know about board policy 350, and they should have brought the new position to you as a board for approval in a transparent and an honest way. Why didn't they? And what are you going to do about it? At the next board meeting, the board should approve the new job descriptions and the new organization chart for the new administrative positions as required by your own policy. My second comment is to bring forward is a suggestion to the board that the district implement an anonymous tip line. I've recommended this twice in the past, once to Dr. Chang and once to Mr. Brown, with no response. Every other school district in the area has an anonymous tip line, and I've provided Mr. Brown with examples of over 10 districts who have it. The purpose of the tip line is to provide a way for students, staff, parents, and community members to report safety issues, ethical issues, discrimination, bullying, etc. So if a student right now has knowledge that there is a safety issue, such as another student having a weapon or selling drugs at school, they are not going to report that for fear of retaliation. There's no way a teenager would do that. But if you gave them an anonymous tip line, they might. There are also parents and even staff who are afraid to speak up at your school for fear of retaliation from some administrators. It's real, and I can personally share that I've experienced this retaliation recently for speaking my truth. I urge the board to have a public conversation about this anonymous tip line, and if you choose not to pursue it, explain to the students, the staff, and the public your reasons for not doing so. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public participation? All right, thank you. We'll move on to reports and information. We have student achievement data with Will and Mary.
And before we jump into that, let me just remind the board, the mics Bob Schmidt has reconfigured to feed directly into our live feed, so hopefully it is better, but what would help is to make sure that with any questions or comments that you have, to make sure you speak clearly into your mic with your mic on, and that way we can do the best job we can to capture it. And then the last item was we typically do have our interpreter here tonight, but he did text just right before the meeting saying that he will not be able to make it due to the weather. So, and that, we'll move on to student achievement data.
Absolutely. So I'm very excited to introduce someone who is new to their role, but not new to our school district, Miss Mary Howard, our assistant principal for teaching and learning. For everyone's memory, this is Mary's first year in this role, but it is her 10th year in the school district, 11th year in the school district, sorry about that, previously serving as the division head for the English department. And Mary is here with a really incredible presentation that a lot of work and time and effort and reflection has gone into, not only by her, but members of her team as well too. So I'm looking forward to it, and without any further ado, Mrs. Howard.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a snapshot of the available data, which will inform you a little bit about our upcoming proposal for addressing student academic and social emotional needs for the 22-23 school year. The information that we'll share tonight is going to be an explanation of the purpose, context, and limitations that were created by the pandemic and remote learning. We'll also look at information available on the District 94 Illinois School Report Card about graduation rate and 9th grade on-track performance, as well as grade and standardized test data. So first we'll begin by considering the purpose, context, and limitations of data. If we ask what is the purpose of data, it enables us to track trends in student growth and to refine instruction and services. The National Academy of Education defines educational assessment or data review as a process for obtaining information that can be used for making decisions about students, teachers, and curricula. Reviewing trends in data contributes to the process that is used to continuously improve as a district, as well as grow and change in response to our students. As we begin the second semester, it's important to acknowledge that this is the third school year impacted by COVID. Our senior class of 2022 are the only students who've experienced a normal school year at WeGo. Our current freshman class, the class of 2025, has not had a full year of in-person learning since they were 6th graders. Therefore, the context or the lens that needs to be applied to the data that we use has 3 key factors. First, the impact of COVID-19 and 5 quarters of blended and virtual learning, as well as the current non-traditional 21-22 school year. We'll also take a look at district demographics, and the role of having 3 feeder districts with unique curriculum and assessments. So if we consider the implications of COVID, students are recovering social emotionally, and psychologist and author Angela Duckworth talks about the fact that learning remotely has affected adolescent well-being. In the brief social emotional learning during COVID-19 and beyond, Duke psychologist Kate Rosenbaum identifies fears, losses, and stressors that children and teens are experiencing even now, including worries about basic needs like parental job loss, missing the opportunity to celebrate milestones, and feeling socially isolated, which can lead to anxiety and depression. CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, which is the preeminent source regarding social emotional skill development, states that social emotional stability is critical for success in school and life. Post-COVID, students have social emotional skill deficits and are continuing to recover emotionally and academically. However, in many cases, mental health and academic performance may not yet be equal to pre-pandemic levels. Research from McKinsey and NWEA states that the most vulnerable students have had some of the steepest drops and setbacks. If we look at a narrower, more local lens, Illinois State Board of Education Superintendent Carmen Ayala stated in October of 2021 that assessment data from the last school year illustrate the significant impact of the pandemic and remote learning on student attendance, enrollment, and academic achievement. Dr. Ayala's statements align with researchers who have found that it's difficult to estimate the impact of the pandemic on academic achievement. The National Academy of Education warns that the impact of the pandemic has made it difficult to accurately interpret data from the 2020-2021 school year. The second context to consider when reviewing data is demographics. Demographic research from the 1960s identified an achievement gap, a difference in standardized testing data between students who are Black or Latino and students who are white. Research has found that in this case, the achievement gap correlates with a gap in income, unemployment rates, and levels of education of parents. Positive news is that this generation of students who are Black and Latino have surpassed the standardized scores of their parents' generation by at least 2 grade levels. Demographics provide important context when examining data, which is particularly significant to our district because 1 in 4 Illinois students are Latino, but 70% of Latino students are concentrated in just 43 out of Illinois' 865 school districts. The significance of this data is that we need to acknowledge our demographics are consistent with only 5% of Illinois school districts. The final context to consider tonight is the impact of multiple feeder districts. Vertical alignment between elementary, secondary, and post-secondary schools is increasingly important. College to Core highlights the dependency between these levels and identifies the need for better alignment. They also emphasize the disconnect between, for example, middle and high school, which can create negative consequences for students. The American Institute for Research recommends aligning instructional strategies and standards and echoes the importance of vertical articulation between schools. This slide provides a visual of the vertical alignment necessary to best serve students. Since 3 feeder districts need to align to District 94, consistency is difficult to achieve. In an effort to address this concern, Dr. Chang has designed a summer summit this June, which will enable administrators from District 25, 33, and 34 to meet and collaborate with the District 94 administration. We are grateful for the opportunity to work together in this way as one group. The third context to consider when reviewing data is limitations. We'll briefly discuss the lack of secondary assessments and the retrospective nature of data, as well as the difference between cohorts and the lack of data due to COVID. Assessment tools like the COGAT, Iowa Test of Basic Skills, CBMs, and numerous others are geared for assessing elementary and middle school students. Ed Analytics points out that standardized assessments are less common in high school because of the wide range of course options at this level, and notably, the lack of alignment between standardized tests and the high school curriculum. Additional limitations include the retrospective nature of data and the inability for classroom teachers to use standardized test data to inform current instruction. We must remember that the data from a singular cohort, for example, the class of 2022, can be tracked longitudinally. However, the class of 2022 cannot be compared with the class of 2021, 2020, etc. Particularly relevant tonight is the fact that our current freshmen, sophomores, and juniors have not had the opportunity to take the PSAT at the 8th, 9th, and/or 10th grade level. Now that we've reviewed the purpose, context, and limitations of tonight's data presentation, we'll examine information from our Illinois School Report Card, semester grades, and standardized assessments. We'll start with the Illinois School Report Card data from 2021, including graduation rates and the 9th grade on-track reporting. In Illinois, most school report card data is gathered from information the district uploads into the State Student Information System, or SIS. The state calculates the graduation rate by tracking the original 9th grade cohort over 4 years. Students who transfer to another school do not count in the calculations. However, students who enroll after the start of 9th grade are counted in the cohort. Ultimately, the graduation rate is the number of graduates for a given class divided by the total cohort, including summer school graduates. During the last 5 years, the District 94 graduation rate has exceeded the state average. This slide captures the D94 graduation rate by ethnicity. To clarify, the 2017 and 2021 data for students who are African American in the senior class was not tallied by the state because the percentage did not reach their threshold. As I mentioned on the last slide, the students who graduated in a given year are not all students who enrolled in the district as freshmen, sophomores, or even juniors. Any student who enrolls in the graduation class is enrolled through graduation is included in the rate. The state not only tracks graduation rate, but also what it calls 9th grade on track, which means how many freshmen complete their first year with at least 5 credits and have failed no more than 1 semester in a core course. The state values this number because their data show the 9th graders who are on track to graduate as freshmen are 4 times more likely to graduate in comparison to their peers who do not qualify as on-track freshmen. School report card data from 2017 to 2021 illustrate the number of District 94 9th graders who are on track met or exceeded the state average each year. So just to clarify, the District 94 data is in green and the state of Illinois data is in red. Just to also reiterate, last year's freshmen, I'll go back to this, the class of 2024 exceeded the state average by 8%. We'll move next to semester grades. This slide summarizes grade data for the 2017-2018 school year through the first semester of this year, which is highlighted in yellow. In general, the rates are very similar within each letter grade across time. The red highlight indicates the 2 school years that were impacted by remote learning. The governor essentially froze grades when remote learning began in March of 2020, which impacted grades for the 2019-2020 school year. And the grading scale for the first semester of the 21-22 school year, the 2020-21 school year also reflected in the data, so those percentages do not align as closely. This slide provides you with a visual representation of the same data by grade level. The yellow again denotes grades from the first semester of this year, and the red highlights the COVID years. You'll notice that each grade level holds largely consistent with itself over time. It is also of note that the highest failure rate in general occurs during freshman year as students acclimate to high school and transition from middle school. This slide reflects the same data graphically. An important follow-up to this discussion of grades is their predictive value. Research from the University of California at Berkeley found that high school grade point averages are consistently the best predictor not only of freshman grades in college, but of four-year college outcomes as well. Students and parents should recognize that grade point averages are one way to evaluate college readiness and are even more valuable than standardized tests. Our final section of the presentation focuses on standardized test data. A quick reminder from our initial section on limitations. The National Academy of Education reminds that a single test or assessment tool cannot serve all purposes, such as determining aptitude, providing norm reference, generating actionable feedback for immediate use by classroom teachers, or effectively communicating with parents and students. Likewise, a single data point is not an effective measure. Longitudinal data is needed. Reacting to a single test score is, quote, a mistake. First, we'll look at SAT data. As we discussed earlier, demographics often impact standardized testing data, so please keep that in mind as we review district and state data. This data reflects SAT testing of the class of 2018 in April of 2017 as juniors. Of note is the similarity between district and the state data in both English and math. This data reflects that of all junior students, including ELs, students with IEPs, students whose families qualify for free and reduced lunch, students who transferred into the district at any time. The only students exempt from this test are special education students in our DLP program. This slide shows data from the class of 2019 administered in April of their junior year. As mentioned earlier, we cannot directly compare data from the class of 2019 with classes before or after it because different cohorts should not be compared directly. These scores also demonstrate parallels with the state. The SAT for the class of 2019 was also administered to them as juniors. Both English and math data for the district demonstrates the same trends as state data. Data for the class of 2020 resembles those of 2018 and 2019, and we'll compare longitudinal data in two more slides. The state did not provide data for 2021, so our class of 2021's SAT data taken when they were seniors in the fall of 2021 rather than the spring of their junior year is available here. Our numbers reflect the impact of COVID. This slide compares our SAT English reading and writing data to the states for the 2018 through 2021 years that we just reviewed. This slide shows the same comparison for longitudinal math SAT data for the district and the state. This slide illustrates the mean SAT composite growth for the combined classes of 21 and 22, only for students who have test scores at the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. The first three columns demonstrate the score growth in English from the PSAT 8 to the SAT. The fourth, fifth, and sixth columns also demonstrate the growth in math from the 8th to 11th grade, for a mean composite gain of 187 points from the 8th to 11th grade. This table synthesizes the mean data for the PSAT 8 to the SAT growth for the classes of 21 and 20 combined. The College Board provides schools with growth estimates to evaluate if students are making expected growth. Reading from right to left, you can see the mean score for the combined cohorts, the table score used to measure growth, as well as the expected growth range by grade level and test. The fifth column of each row shows the mean score on the next test and whether or not the mean falls between the expected growth range. You can see that the PSAT 8 to PSAT 9 scores demonstrate 44 points of growth in English, and the ultimate growth from PSAT 9 to the SAT demonstrates 31. Equally important is that the final mean English SAT score of 474 falls in the upper range of the 420 to 520 expected growth. Likewise, the math growth for the same cohorts also meets growth expectations. The math PSAT 8 to PSAT 9 scores demonstrate a growth of 79 points. After a loss on the PSAT 9 to the PSAT 10 test, the scores grow beyond the PSAT 9 score of 439 to 472 for a growth of 33 points, which also meets expected growth for the PSAT 8 to the SAT. The final set of data we'll review is our advanced placement testing. This slide illustrates the significant growth in honors and AP enrollment during the last 14 years. From a low of 398 students enrolled in honors and advanced placement classes in 2008 to a high of 2,033 in 2020. This demonstrates open access for all students. Similarly, this slide demonstrates the enormous gains in AP test participation. Since 1996, District 94's AP testing has increased from a low of 78 in 1996 to a high of 741 in 2019. This is particularly exciting because more students have had the opportunity to experience advanced placement curriculum and assessments, and many have earned college credit through AP testing. This slide illustrates the percentage of students who pass an AP test each year. Students can earn a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 on an AP test. Those who score a 3, 4, or 5 are considered passing. The pass rate since 2015 has risen even as the number of students enrolled has increased. Proponents of a gatekeeping model of enrollment argue that the greater access leads to inferior academic experiences and performance. However, this data shows otherwise. This slide illustrates the data from the previous one to visually represent the increase in students earning a 3, 4, or 5 on an AP test since 2015. Remote learning impacted AP testing participation and achievement in comparison to the years prior. However, data from the 2020-2021 school year also demonstrate celebrations. Last year, 323 students took a total of 527 exams. 62% of the tests were 3, 4, or 5, which is passing. You can see the data for 5s, 4s, and 3s individually. The 5 courses with the largest enrollment were Human Geography, Spanish Language, English Language, U.S. History, and World History. The percentage of students who passed these 7 courses exceeded the national percentage. Spanish Literature, Biology, World History, Environmental Science, Human Geography, Calc BC, and Statistics. Of note is that world history is a sophomore course and human geography is a freshman one. I'd like to thank all of the AP teachers for their work this year and during the two very challenging years prior. At the risk of skipping someone, they are Robert Beal, Nick Caltagirone, John Chisholm, Brianne Ferrero, Candy Fickus, Anna Fulmer, Maggie Haas, Aaron Hayes, Lizzie Mastriani, Nicole Osborne, Lynn Pito, Mike Prinzer, Alejandra Tantachuco, Michelle Torres, Brian Turnbaugh, Ashley Walsh, and Alex Wojciechowski. I'd like to end this section on AP testing with the fact that District 94 AP enrollment has increased by 97%, while the national average is 43 in the last 10 years. Finally, a very brief preview of what's to come for the next school year. In the upcoming board meetings, Dr. Dwyer is going to provide an update on the current interventions that we already have in place for Tier 2, some data of our incoming class of 2026 and their particular needs, proposed interventions that we have for the coming year, as well as staffing considerations that would entail. And with that, that is the end of my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Is it possible we can get copies of the slides
Definitely.
for
Yeah.
review?
I
Thank
can
you.
do it before I leave, no problem.
Oh, okay, awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I would have to say that a lot of information coming quickly. It's probably something I would, given the time, I would pore over for 8 hours and still not get that much out of it. I think maybe it would be worthwhile over the next couple of board meetings to go back and break some of the more important sections down and give us, you know, a piece at a time.
Sure.
So that we have a better understanding. And from the beginning of the presentation, I'm struck by the fact that there seem to be a lot of things that have to be helped, fixed. I don't want to say fixed, not broken, but improved on. And I kind of have the feeling that while we would like to improve on everything right away, if we try to do that, we probably won't get very far, and we should look at maybe a couple of priorities that would have the biggest impact in the shortest amount of time and focus on that so we don't dilute our efforts at trying to address all of these issues right away.
Excellent, thank you, Rich. Any other comments, questions?
I was going to say that I love the fact that I think the last slide you said that we haven't had an increase of 94% in AP enrollment versus like the state. Like I think that's awesome, and I think we should continue to encourage, you know, students to take AP classes. So
Going along with what Giovanni said, I'd like to know like a little bit about what the change was in the numbers and how they increased, and what the children's data, like who are we servicing in those AP classes to see that much growth?
Sure, we can be more specific, but I also can just mention that since I was English department chair for 10 years, even just in the last decade, what really happened was we changed the percentile for students to have admittance into honors. And so previously it had been a very, very narrow band of students, perhaps even as high as the 90th percentile and above. So for our upcoming year, students for English, an example, it's at the 75th percentile. And that's not even a fixed rate, that's just a recommendation. Parents have the option to, you know, choose to do otherwise and enroll a student who may not yet meet that criteria in an honors class. So, you know, freshman and sophomore honors courses are really the gateway to our AP program. And even just teaching some of those courses, you can see that we're just having students from, you know, every area of the building, all different kinds of interests, backgrounds. It's a much more diverse classroom than it ever had been previously.
And Penny, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to follow up with a question on the criteria then. Could we maybe see something in a slide presentation or something to go along with, like what Rich said, a little bit more information on what that criteria looks like? And also I'd be interested to see in the criteria of the 8th graders feeding into 9th grade, like what does that look like? What are we looking for? How do they qualify to bump into those AP classes?
Yeah, and contextually too, going back to the AP question, I can tell you that probably back in 2010 was when 2011 when we made very strategic and intentional efforts to do exactly what Mary said. But there's another piece to AP enrollment, which Mary pointed out very clearly, which is honors enrollment. But in addition to the qualifying and so forth, is the important piece of taking time to explain what AP is to our families and to encourage them and walk through the benefits of AP and what it means. And even if they don't take the test, even if students don't take the test, which is not a requirement here, there's still advantages gained from being in that course. And so intentional time was taken by our counselors to sit down with students and walk through what a college credit bearing course would be and how to get into that course through honors and provide a support system for that. So it really was an intentional effort in a sense to open the access to all of our student body to increase that enrollment. And we've always maintained that if a parent really feels and a student wants to try to move up to the next level, then that's obviously within the prerogative of the parent to do so, and they are allowed to make that request, and we would honor that without hesitation. So that was also a key piece way back then to really increase our enrollment for AP.
I also add that it isn't just more students in the same set of courses over the last 10 years, and it might be helpful to see a slide. We've increased the offerings of AP.
Mm-hmm.
So in addition to bringing more people in, we've also given more people other interests. And I think we've probably added, 8 maybe new AP courses over the last 10 years that help to accelerate not only the more people signing up, but more people signing up for more things. So
Yeah.
it'd be good to see over the last 15 years or so, the actual course offering changes, increases as well.
Sure.
And then maybe the distinction between honors and AP. Like, how would we differentiate who would be the student population that would benefit from either?
Do you want me to answer that right now, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. So a lot of times we think of courses at the freshman and sophomore level as generally almost like pre-AP classes. So in social studies, it's a different animal because beginning in the freshman year, students can take advanced placement classes. So AP Human Geography, like I mentioned, and World History are freshman and sophomore courses. In other areas, most of the students in AP are juniors and seniors. So honors courses are typically freshman and sophomore courses that are going to move at an accelerated pace, be able to meet grade level standards and beyond. And so that really is just going to be students who at the year or years prior have really, done well. In general, those are kids that have a lot of school kind of skills, organizational, executive functioning skills, but not always, not a requirement by any means. So then the difference between honors and AP is that AP is a curriculum that is set by the College Board. So it's designed to try and have students all across the country and actually internationally have the same kind of experiences in a course that would essentially be the equivalent of something that they may take as a freshman in college. So there's a very deep commitment to the syllabus that's turned into the College Board that teachers are bound to be meeting the standards that they're setting forth. So students who are in honors, obviously they're the ones who go into AP. The difference maybe is that there are some students who are in honors who may ultimately be stretched by honors, and so they'll choose not to go into advanced placement as a junior or senior, not to use another English example, but I will. So kids who perhaps are in English 1 and English 2 honors, they may choose to go into English 3 enriched instead of the AP language class because they either may have a very dense schedule, out of school commitments. Like I said, they feel like they kind of reached a threshold where they don't feel like they could continue to take on that kind of challenge, but can still do some kind of enriched work. So the students ultimately, choose largely when they get to a junior or senior year if they feel they're ready for that step. They also do have the option in different departments where perhaps they won't take the AP class that's designed for a junior, but may do so as a senior. So that's also an option where we don't in any way lock in the expectation of at what time students would be able to enroll in an advanced placement course.
I think also when we went to weighted grades, that also provided some incentive for
Yeah.
students to take a little more risk where they were maybe reluctant to do that in the past. So a lot of things that we've done
Yeah.
in the last 10, 12 years is contributing to our great success in AP work and honors and things.
Yeah.
So I think, go back to the Dirk Gunderson days, the key word was rigor.
Without stealing Dr. Dwyer's thunder from when he'll talk in the future, I do think one of our concerns potentially with the incoming class of freshmen is if we have lower numbers in honors, that's ultimately going to set off a domino effect that will continue potentially through sophomore, junior, and senior year. So we're very sensitive to being cautious that we want to have, generous amounts of students as freshmen and sophomores in honors and advanced placement, because that's going to set up a precedent. If students don't enter into honors courses, it's more difficult for them to be able to be prepared to take those classes at the time that their grade level peers would. So that's one of the concerns kind of with the COVID piece, is that do we have enough students who are ready at a freshman level to be in an honors or an advanced placement course?
Okay, excellent. Thank you. It was
Thank
an
you.
excellent presentation. Let's see here. Will, are you going to update us on the student dances, homecoming, and prom?
Absolutely. So I want to take a little bit of time to address what our annual prom will look like this year in light of what we have learned from our homecoming experience. So first, let me summarize what we learned from homecoming. Probably the most critical aspect is that our control of the environment is really, really important. And what I mean by that are exits, entrances, and lighting. So in the past, when we've had dances in the gymnasium or even in the commons, at any time the energy or some of the behavior gets to a point that is starting to get beyond the threshold of what the supervisors want, we've been able to turn all the lights on in an area, keep the kids there, everyone leaves the dance floor, expectations get reset, everything kind of comes down a little bit. When we had homecoming, it was our first time ever having an outdoor event. We had a few things working against us. First, we couldn't control the lighting in that environment. So if you may remember, it was an outdoor event, originally planned to have lighting around the DJ booth. Well, as we know, rain got predicted, and we did have rain that evening. So at the last minute, we brought in massive tents. We brought tents in, and they strung lights, meaning the DJ, across the tent. And that was our lighting, but it wasn't controllable, meaning that it couldn't go up or down. It was simply on or off. And to turn it off, we would have been in pitch black. But there's no way to turn the lights up to a higher level where that anonymity that sometimes can be felt at a dance would go away. So that was one thing we had working against us. Second, is that the dance area, because of the tents and because of the weather, it was more crowded than what we would normally want that area to be. We would want that to be able to spread out and be a little bit more diffuse, but unfortunately it wasn't. And then finally, the venues of the dance were really too fluid, meaning that kids were a little bit more easily able to move from indoor to outdoor to the break room, and that created and there was a long hallway in between those areas, and that created a difficulty to control. So all these factors also created a level of anonymity and an inability to shut down individual or group behaviors as quickly as we normally would want to. And unfortunately, at times that emboldened some behaviors that we wouldn't really tolerate or want at these events. So how does that relate to prom? First, we're going to add more preemptive measures to our prom than we would typically have. All ticket sales for prom are sold only in advance, and it eliminates that last-minute surge in attendance, which was certainly a factor at homecoming. There were a lot of tickets sold at the door. Second, this year, and this will be new, we're going to conduct a mandatory pre-prom meeting for all WeGo attendees where we will spell out our expectations. This will happen the Monday before the event, and there will be an AM option and a PM option for all students to attend, and that will be the expectation. Third, our annual prom letter that goes out to families of our upperclassmen. By the way, upperclassmen are the only ones eligible to go unless an underclassman is invited by an upperclassman. That letter will go out and will very, very clearly spell out our expectations and really be crystal clear to parents, so parents are very aware of what we want. That's our preemptive measures. At the venue, one, the lighting and the venue itself are very, very, very controllable. For your memory, we're going to the Field Museum in downtown Chicago. We control the whole thing from start to finish. Students ride our buses to the venue there and to the venue back. So from point of getting there to point of getting home, they are under our supervision. Additionally, we'll have a surplus of our own supervisors as well as security and off-duty Chicago PD from the Field Museum, and that's their requirement, and they are the ones who are fielding that. Additionally, prom has more activities inherent at it that divide the group up. There's eating, you have a table that is your space to be at. In the past, when we've gone to museums, they're able to go to some of the exhibits, have some tours, have some other things that are happening, all while under supervision. So what that avoids is all the kids at one time, a large number, trying to crowd into and dance on one crowded dance floor at once. There's just more to do, and it breaks up more naturally. This allows us to avoid that large crush. Also, prom is a much more formal event in which students have invested more time, more energy, more resources, and really forethought into the event. And there's a little bit more anticipation around it too. And that really reduces the probability of unwanted behaviors. And last but not least, there will be a site visit later in March where myself, Mr. Wolf, members of the student council, both the sponsors and some of the students, we get to go visit the site, really get the lay of the land, almost as if we're planning a wedding, frankly. And we get to do that walkthrough and get to see where things will be, and we get to ask for certain layouts. So it's a very, very, very controlled environment. We have that opportunity. So as we think about how that then extrapolates to other dances that we'll have in the future, there's a lot that we've learned and a lot that we either will definitely adopt or we are in the process of strongly considering. First, really looking at limiting ticket sales, not just the number of tickets that we will sell to an event, but also when we will cut those sales off. I will say at homecoming, we did sell quite a few tickets at the day of and created a larger crowd than we thought. We're looking very strongly at simply limiting it to you have to buy the ticket ahead of time. There will be no at-the-door sales of tickets. Next, looking at no more water bottles, period. As you may or may not know, that created definitely a difficulty. We wanted everyone to be hydrated, provided free water, and those turned into water that was sprayed or thrown and created definitely a problem for us. Third, outdoor dances are challenging. I stopped a long time ago trying to predict what would or wouldn't happen as a result of COVID or when it would be over and when we wouldn't be dealing with it. So I won't completely shut the door, but what I'll say is if we have to go outdoor, it creates a lot of challenges and we lose a lot of the tools that we rely on when it comes to having that many children and that much energy in one space. So we would have to either severely redesign or strongly consider not having outdoor dances at all. And then finally, really looking to create more activities at the dances to break that up. Maybe that is activities going on in the field house that are more physical, like maybe a bounce house or different zip lines that I've seen other schools do. But just different activities that we can break up and have kids able to do other than being in the area for dancing. So it gives us A, kids more options, B, it makes the crowds more diffuse and gives us more opportunity to control that environment. So as we look forward, those are the strategies that will be implemented as we look to our April 22nd prom, as well as we look at other dances that we typically would host on campus. And any questions, of course?
Dr. Dwyer, I just want to congratulate you in stating that you will do a little bit more research, because I do know that some of our neighboring districts did host successful outdoor events. And I really like the fact that you're exploring other options that involve a little bit more, options like the jump house and other things. I think that, as you said, we don't know what to plan for anymore, because I think the landscape has changed forever. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, the landscape has changed since I was in high school. And then this has created another change that we're just going to have to realize. I was not aware until a few years ago, there really aren't any more slow songs at dances. It just isn't a thing. And, you know, we live and we learn. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we have Wildcat Booster Advertising, and most.
Yep. So tonight we have two representatives from the Wildcat Booster. We have Mr. Turney and Mr. Wimbish. And before I give them a chance to explain their next efforts, I just wanted to talk about the context for why they are here. They would like to begin an advertising opportunity from the Wildcat Boosters to increase their funds. And part of that advertising campaign is to be able to have advertised banners on the athletic field. According to Board Policy 825, prior approval from the board is needed for advertisements on athletic fields, scoreboards, and other building locations. And so we're just giving the Wildcat Boosters an opportunity to explain and for the board to ask questions with regards to their proposal. So, Mr. Turney and Mr. Wimbish, it's all yours.
Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm Scott Turney, Boosters president. Robert Wimbish has kindly graciously stood up to go out and search the public donations for us, mostly industrial sites. There is such an overwhelming response of people wanting to give us money, but they want to be advertised to give us money. We've done this before along the fencing on the football field, as well the outside and the inside. We're looking more on the inside fencing right now, and the inside of the outside fencing, as well as small banners like it's in the Bishop Gym, which will be changed every 2 years. I'm going to hand this over to Robert. He has all the information on it, drawn up for him. Thank you.
Good evening, board members, and thank you for taking the time this evening to consider our request for favorable action on a business sponsorship initiative. Be happy to answer any questions at the end. I'd like to briefly introduce myself, if I may. Again, my name is Rob Wimbish. I am a parent of a junior enrolled here at the high school. You were talking earlier about the AP program. He is one of the students who participates in the AP program and has since his freshman year with the prosaically named AP Hugs, Human Geography. Obviously here tonight, though, I'm here to speak about, oh, and by the way, my son, incidentally, and how I became involved in the booster organization. My son has been involved in multiple sports since enrolling here at West Chicago Community High School. We moved into the area in 2014 from the Washington, D.C. area, Fairfax County, to be specific. My son has participated in baseball. He has participated in 3 years of football, and he is currently active in wrestling. He has been participating this year at AP with Mr. Chisholm, and he has been very enthusiastic about that course. I thought I would just share with you. We're here today to ask this board to consider favorable action on our business sponsorship initiative because, as I found becoming involved in the Boosters organization, it's a small but resolute group of people who devote a considerable amount of their time, which is limited for most of us, in a school district that is not necessarily rich in family resources. We spend a lot of time finding ways to do what we can for the student activities here, for teachers, and for other activities where necessary. I would say, Scott, we have what, maybe 20 people regularly committed to our Boosters organization? Maybe. So to give you some context, that's a lot of hard work associated with trying to find ways to raise money. We've done this in some occasions in the past, I understand, through special events, fundraising activities, One of the most predominant areas that we've found to raise money, which takes a lot of work, is concessions at sporting events, primarily, other events at times. That takes a considerable amount of coordination, and I find that those responsibilities tend to fall disproportionately on a handful of people. Again, we support virtually every activity or sport that our students participate in. We also support and coordinate with other groups within those activities who are also looking to raise funds as well. And some of those sports and activities also have their own fundraising initiatives that I've at least experienced since I've been involved. Clearly, for this community, one of the biggest untapped resources that I am aware is out there from my own personal experience with fundraising, and incidentally, I have worked in the past through my wife with the EduCare program that's here in our community as well, to explore ways to fundraise for those kinds of programs, worthwhile as they are. We know from that experience that there are a number of businesses that are interested and willing to support the activities of this community and particularly this high school. What most of them are looking for in response to that, their contributions, is some acknowledgement at the campus for their support of West Chicago High School and the students here. We have explored this as a boosters organization to see if there might be a way to raise money through that opportunity. We have discussed this with Mr. Pater, the athletic director, and he, of course, has been receptive to this, and he has encouraged us to be here tonight. Our idea, more than just a concept at this point, we've actually got a model for what we're proposing to do, has various facets. But one of the largest facets and one of the largest opportunities, of course, is in exchange for contributions of a certain size, to provide banner advertising of an established type that would be something that would be prescribed, of different sizes, and potentially located in 2 or 3 designated areas in coordination with this Board of Education and the school's administration. The idea here also would be that we would be attentive to not only the location of those banners, but also attentive to their upkeep in the period of time at which they could be located at a particular place until there would be a chance to re-up, in effect, one sponsorship, at which time we would also revisit the type of banner that would be used. Now, I'm new to this here, so I know that for me, part of this is still going to be a learning process, just as it was for Dr. Dwyer with respect to the dances. So we may not get it all right at first, but we will find a way to make sure that this is effective, that we do not compromise the aesthetics of this school, and that we do this in a way that maximizes the return for our students. There is no question, but that this is a massive, untapped resource, and we have individuals who are anxious to work on this. As an illustration of this, I personally receive a handful of contacts, not many, but I've had a few just coming in involuntarily, hearing that we're working on something like this and saying, let us know when you're going to do this. We would sure like to talk to you about it. Now, I could go into the other particulars of this, but I think it might be more appropriate under the circumstances for me to be able to open up the time for you to ask questions rather than leave the discussion in an area that may not be of as much interest to you.
Great, thank you so much. Anybody have any questions?
Now, what are we currently doing as far as advertising? I know this is an issue that comes up often. I, for one, am reluctant to turn the school into a billboard. So I guess I'd want to know a little bit more about the plans and what we've been doing in the past.
From my understanding, right now, there is none. If you go out to our fencing, there are no banners advertised, and we do not participate or engage in that. And I think Richie would remember back how complicated it was to narrow down on the processes for advertisement. I'm going back 10 years. And since that time, it's really not been a vibrant or an actual active part of what the boosters do here or what we've been engaged with at the building level.
I seem to recall that was kind of the direction we were going, but I think you had mentioned that there are currently banners out there or something, so I
No,
wasn't sure.
the only advertising that I personally am aware of is the advertising, which actually is also included within our business sponsorship plan, I might add, which is advertising that we know is provided for in the seasonal programs that go with different sports seasons. That was the case for the fall. I've seen that in the programs, at least the ones I've seen distributed for the winter sports as well. That is one opportunity, and that is included within our business sponsorship initiative. Another opportunity might be, in effect, spoken word spots during events. You may see or hear those at other sporting events I have at other high schools around. So basically kind of a spoken word advertising during PA announcements. That also is within our list of options as well. The one that we find that is the most of interest to us, and the one that probably will earn the most interest from businesses, is the banner opportunity. But I would agree that that banner opportunity has to be carefully looked at. And of course, like I said, we would plan on all the banners to be of a conforming type.
Yeah, okay. I haven't noticed recently, but I know I used to drive past Wheaton North, and the whole field is just plastered with banners, and it just doesn't look good.
Yeah, and even some of the some of our more affluent neighbors, Wheaton Academy does some of the same thing. They have it, for example, on their baseball outfield walls, as you might find at a minor league baseball field or something.
If you might add, all our banners that we're proposing will be all uniform. There won't be different colored banners. They will all have the same colors, and they will all be uniform.
Mr. Pater has shared with us his view of this as well, and yes, he's already indicated to us precisely the format. That is, that there would be, well, to be clear, so I don't get the colors reversed. I know blue and white, but I'm not sure in which order. There would be a banner template, is what he's explained to us. Company name and logo. The banner will be navy blue with a white border, and apparently we have a relationship that I'm not aware of the details of involving Nike. Somehow there would be a Nike imprint on the banner as well.
Probably Under Armour.
Yeah.
Okay, it must
Under
be Under
Armour.
Armour then. I have Nike here, but Under Armour.
Yeah.
So my question is, from my understanding, there's different sizes that'll give us different amounts of money, or is it a standard size that will lead to a?
We're exploring two different sizes at this point. I'm sorry if the question was addressed to me. I didn't mean to respond too soon. We're exploring two different sizes at this point. One that would be more suitable in a larger size for an outdoor position, and then we are looking at a smaller banner that could be used probably in indoor facilities such as Bishop Gym.
Another question. Do you anticipate that these banners would be up permanently within whatever contract time, or they would be up when there's activities at the location and then taken down during school days and things like that? I mean, is that a possibility? So
Couldn't
we're not,
rule it
we're not,
out.
we're not
Yeah.
exposing students on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis of advertising, but when there's a field full of spectators, then, you know, they have the opportunity to see who wants to be generous in the area.
Look, I would be happy to explore the logistics of that, particularly with Mr. Pater, who we would clearly have to be coordinating on, as well as you, on the location of the banners and the timeframes in which they were posted. What we are contemplating now in terms of the ultimate duration, that is from when would you be entitled to have a banner posted to when you would need to sign up again, we're looking at 2-year intervals for that. In our ideal world, we'd be able to start soliciting that kind of business support now, looking ahead for the next 2 academic years. Most of the sponsors that have indicated an interest would like to make sure that they have some discernible year-to-year presence, and we thought 2 years is what we were looking at as a possible time frame for this. As far as whether or not the banners go up or come down at different times, logistically, I would have to consult with Mr. Pater about how that could be done. Clearly, the advertisers would want to have those banners up at times when folks who they think may patronize their businesses could see them, naturally. And I would think that those would be predominantly during events, basketball games, baseball games, football games, soccer games, volleyball, you name it.
And the banners, within a 2-year contract, if they get destroyed from the weather or anything else, they'll be replaced within the 2 years. And after the 2 years, if the company in question decides not to go back with it, the banner, of course, will be removed.
I also want to add one thing here. I need to correct myself. I had said that there were 2 banner sizes. We are actually looking at 3 different banner sizes. Each one would be contingent on a certain amount of contribution. Each one has its own contribution threshold.
So just looking for a general sense of next steps for the Wildcat Booster. This is the first proposal to do advertisement under press policy. Previously, under the district's own policy, it was written differently, so this is the first go-around with this proposal. Just for context, if the board were to approve at a regular board meeting the advertisement campaign, it would be in partnership with the building administration for everything that has just been said, the location and the maintenance and the expectation for how that would advertisement go up so that we do not violate any exclusivity rules within contracts. So that would be handled through the building administration, as well as just having oversight as to who will be advertising, should that be approved. So just wanted to know the sense of the board's direction on this, if wanted to have another opportunity for discussion, or if there was a readiness for action at the next Board of Education meeting. What's the direction here?
I think it'd be nice to see some visuals too. It's kind of hard to picture like how much it would be or how little, like you're saying, exactly where they'd be placed. It's kind of easy enough picturing them on the fences outside, but I'm kind of trying to envision them in Bishop Gym and how that would look. And probably not as big of a deal outside, but like you were saying, do we leave them up, every day during the school day? Logistically, is it hard to take them up and down? So I think we need a little bit more information on that. I'm open to the idea of it. I just think that we need more information. How much money would it generate? If you have specific people lined up already.
Well, I think as far as how much money it could generate, I mean, that's a difficult one, because what we would need to do there, I suppose, is do the legwork among a very limited group to begin with. I'm just giving you the practical considerations of the legwork here. I'm not trying to be obstinate on something, but to go out and say, supposing that you wanted to support us, what level would you support? That's a significant amount of time to pull a number of businesses throughout the area. And was there something, Scott, you wanted to add?
No, I was going to see if you had that sample that we
Yeah,
had.
we do. I don't have the design. That was something that Peter had some, but this is the
Lynn, I can just quickly weigh in over here. So in a previous life, when I was the high school athletic director, I did do a very similar process shortly after the big crash in the 2009-10 school year, and athletic budgets were slashed, and we raised tens of thousands of dollars doing this, and we just sold the spots within our main athletic areas, 3 different gyms, a pool, and outdoor facilities as well. It was lucrative, and it was a consistent revenue stream for 2 very tight years that we needed that additional income. Obviously, the economy's in a different place right now, and it's a different area than the school I was working at the time. But there is revenue to be had, and to Scott's point, if we control the branding of the signage, it is less of an eyesore. It doesn't look like Kane County Cougar Stadium. It looks more like West Chicago branding that is acknowledging the support of a corporate sponsor.
But I would be happy to see that we could work to develop up for you to see what one of these banners might look like. As far as the interest we've had, I can only speak anecdotally to that. And I can only tell you that to the handful of businesses that I have talked to about this, and some of the other parents that I know have talked to about this idea, have been very receptive. Now, we haven't gotten down to numbers yet because nothing has been approved, And so it would be kind of difficult to figure out where we are in the scale. I can simply tell you anecdotally, there was a significant amount of interest among the handful of businesses we've checked with. And the other thing is, just to give you an illustration of this, through my wife, I've coordinated on some fundraising activities for Educare in West Chicago, and we had found that there were a number of businesses, ones you don't necessarily see that much, that are here in our community. I'll give you an illustration. We have the Canadian National, Wisconsin Central technically running back behind our bleachers here. They were active in supporting, for example, the Educare facility. We simply pointed out, you're a neighbor, you run right behind our facility. We'd love to have your community support. You have a railroad yard here in West Chicago. Union Pacific does as well. Two examples of people, of companies you don't necessarily see. They don't have a business presence in setting up sort of a shingle on Main Street, but they're here. And this is an illustration. We know that those types of organizations, from my personal experience, are ones that are oftentimes willing to give back to their communities in which they operate.
Excellent, thank you.
Can I say real quick for a second?
Sure.
Okay. Number one, I want to say that I really appreciate your enthusiasm and give you a lot of credit. The boosters have struggled through all my years on the board and trying to come up with effective fundraising methods. So I fully support doing this, and we have such a very involved and engaged business community and chambers of commerce. There's actually 3 of them within the district that feed into our district. That engaging them would be a really great benefit. But I think it's time that we did support the boosters by taking a step, allowing them to do something like this rather than just having to run the concessions, which is basically running bake sales to raise a lot of money. It's a lot of work, and it isn't real effective. So I would be totally supportive of doing this.
Thank you. It's also a point of pride for a lot of the businesses here, in that you'll notice if you go into some of the local establishments around here, you may enter in and see on the sides of the entranceways maybe sponsorships for Little League Baseball, whether that's Winfield in Action, West Chicago, or any of the other ones. Most of these organizations would love to, especially those who are out in the public, be able to do that. That's part of our proposal, by the way, is if you give to a certain amount, we want to be able to acknowledge that by some sort of a plaque or something, that a point of pride in terms of bringing the community together. Folks can come into these businesses, see that they're supporting West Chicago athletics and activities, for them to be able to be proud to be able to do it. I think it reinforces itself, it builds upon itself. And I don't want to sound overly ambitious here, but just based on some random sampling on this, I think this is something that, whereas, we work very hard with concessions and stuff, we're talking potentially tens of thousands of dollars in resources that go across to supporting teachers for recognition, to our athletic departments, but not just for athletic stuff. It can go to theater, it can go to music, it can go to any of the other of the various activities I read about in Wildcat Chronicle and elsewhere.
So we could bring this back as a follow-up to the March Committee of the Whole meeting, and then perhaps have more information with potential action for March at the Board of Education meeting. All right.
Thank you so
Excellent.
much for your time. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Excellent presentation, and fundraising is very, very difficult, so thank you for that.
Can I trouble you for one of those bottles of water?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the West Chicago TIF, and Dan, you're on.
Thank you. The Joint Review Board for the West Chicago TIF meeting was held on January 19th to discuss the new West Chicago TIF. As a reminder, this new TIF terminates the original TIF and creates a new TIF 2, but still has similar boundaries. The new TIF 2 will be meant to improve the city's downtown area, especially areas to the west of City Hall. The West Chicago Forward initiative, as noted in your packet, states it's designed mainly around enhancing the downtown area by taking advantage of the historical train depot, the charming streetscape of Lower Turner Court, as well as the historical storefronts along Main Street. Their plan includes working with developers to enhance the current storefronts, along with building condominiums with retail on the lower level that will be located just west of the City Hall. Public hearing to approve that new TIF 2 will occur on February 21st. Obviously, there's more information that can be found on the city's website along with the packet that I provided. Any questions on that?
Are they funding a city hall too?
No, they are not.
Curious.
What is the proposed length of this,
The 23 years.
How far are they in for the original TIF?
They are, I believe the original TIF expires in 7 years.
So, we're ending that now? Thank you. We're ending that now and then restarting at 23 years. And it's the same size TIF as what the original TIF is?
It's a little smaller. The original TIF had some properties that were closer to 59 and along Route 59, and those are properties that would be coming onto our tax rolls as they're reducing the size of the new TIF 2.
And this was just meant to be an update to the board from based on our information that we got from Mr. Gutman at West Chicago, as well as participation in the JRB. So we just want to make sure the board was aware of that.
I realized at the end of 118 pages of looking at the brochure, I could have approved all the policies instead.
I know.
That's next, Rich.
Yeah. Okay, all right, good, thank you. And you're up again, Dan, with the Epsilon Data Management Abatement.
Thank you. If you recall from the last board meeting, Epsilon Management has asked for incentives to move their headquarters to West Chicago and expand their current location. Michael Gutman from the City of West Chicago provided a response to Epsilon Management's request based on the responses from the taxing entities. The original thought from Mr. Gutman was to provide an abatement for the original current building and an abatement for the new building that they would plan to build. But in the letter provided to Epsilon Management, an abatement was only offered on the new proposed building and not the current building. So we have not received a response back yet from Epsilon Management. If we get that response back before the next board meeting, we'll bring that to the board for approval.
Okay, thank you. And Sunrise Transportation Contract Extension?
As noted at the January board meeting, we've started conversations with Sunrise Transportation regarding the transportation of our special education students through our special education cooperative, SACID. We're currently in the 4th year of our contract with Sunrise, and we have the option of a 5th and final year before we need to go out to bid. As noted in January, Sunrise initially asked for a 15% increase, which led to a meeting with SACID members and Sunrise management to discuss the increase and our concerns. After that meeting, Sunrise provided an addendum which includes a performance-based increase. With the performance-based increase, the district would only pay 15% if Sunrise was able to perform 100% of all requested routes. If Sunrise was only able to provide less than 70% of the requested routes, then there would be no increase. And as the percentage moves closer to 100%, the increase rises. For context, Sunrise is currently covering about 50% of our requested routes. I've also been informed that 8 of the 11 SACID districts have said that they are in favor of continuing the contract with Sunrise, and they have accepted the idea of the performance-based increases. For tonight, I'm interested to hear the board's perspective on the performance-based increase. If the board is in favor, I'll notify SACID, and a contract extension will be brought to the board for approval in coming months.
Just to confirm, the extension would be 22 to 23, right?
Correct, next year. Any questions on that?
Seems appropriate to me, yeah.
I'm not a big fan of extensions like this with this large of an increase. It being 1 year though, I'm more open to it. But I don't think we should be considering anything beyond the 1 year.
Well, we're required to go out to bid after the year anyways, correct?
Yeah, we've already had requests. So we have the 5-year we have the 3-year plus the 2-year extension. And then if we've gotten any kind of inquiries of going out to bid after that, then we'd be required by state code to go out to bid after the 5th year. And we do have those requests. So yes, we would be going out to bid next year.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Next, we have the athletic trainers contract. Dan?
Yep. I met with ATI, our current provider, last Thursday afternoon to discuss rates and the contract for next year, as we have 1 optional year left on our contract. As a reminder, our contract with ATI is a 3-year contract, but provides 2 optional years, which we approved an extension of 1 optional year for this current school year. Due to the current market, I was requesting I wanted to talk to ATI to see where they stood on that extension, because with the current market, I know that there's been issues with other providers, and that they have been struggling to provide those athletic trainers. And so I wanted to see if there was a possibility of keeping our current athletic trainers for 1 additional year, as I was concerned that there might be an issue with other companies. But so I did ask them what their increase would be for next year, and they came back with a total contract of $95,000 per year, which is actually up from $68,000 per year. So it is a very large increase that is normally about $2,000 in the past. We did discuss how the district has been happy with the current relationship with ATI. Both entities would like to continue the partnership if possible. So at this point in time, we have a couple options that we can either accept that new rate from ATI with the assumption that it's probably not going to get any better. And we have our athletic trainers in place. We would still have those people come in. We would have no issue with service. Or we test the market and see what happens. ATI noted that they would submit a bid and still be involved. So at this point, my recommendation would be to go out to bid and see what happens. I don't think it can get any worse.
Did they give a reason for such a large increase?
It's just the market that we're in, that right now that they're really dependent on people coming in and using their training facilities and things like that, and it just isn't happening. And again, just regular wage increases for their staff, and just to be able to cover their staff, it's just really a bad market right now.
Who else is servicing this type of?
There's Athletico and I think Northwestern. Those are the 2 off the top of my head. Just to confirm, that we going out to bid is.
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. You're feeling if
Right.
Agreed.
Right. That's incredible.
Rich, did you have something else?
Your expectation is if we go out to bid, they'll come back with about the same amount that they're increasing?
I'm not expecting it to get better. So I would expect they would come back around the 95.
But it wouldn't get worse. You would.
If ATI comes back as the low bid and it's worse than 95, I'm going to try to hold them to that 95. They've already put that number out there, so that's the benchmark in my opinion.
I will speak from experience with 2 of my kids. I have been working with our current trainers, I think, at least one of them, since 2014, 15, and I can't say enough about them. I mean, they are really hardworking. They are here, I feel, from like sun up to sundown sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
They are visible. And this year, my daughter experienced a severe issue with her knee, and I mean, the follow-up, the follow-through, the check-ins, I mean, on a daily basis during both her seasons, and I just can't speak, highly enough about them. They're absolutely wonderful to work with.
I agree. I've heard nothing but good things about our athletic trainers from ATI. Again, it's been a good partnership with them. It's just a situation where we're going to have, it just makes sense to go out to bid.
Is this per trainer then?
No,
What-
in total.
This is the total, okay, and how many trainers do we have?
We have two.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? All righty, then we have our copier contract, Dan.
All right, so we're in the last year of our contract with Proven IT. Before moving forward with a new RFP for copiers, I asked Proven IT for solutions and pricing, keeping in mind that some of the machines have not been used to full volume over the last 4 years. As we are also getting used to spaces in new parts of the building, we've determined that a few departments are in need of a copier. Those departments include English, special ed, and the principal's office. So I asked Proven IT to include those additional copiers in their pricing and solution. So you can keep in mind that we're not obligated to issue an RFP or officially bid for these types of purchases, as they can be considered technology. Proven IT provided a solution that included the additional copiers requested, replacing all the other machines except for the 2 production machines and the district office copier, which, based on the new contract, the district would now own. Their solution was an overall increase of 2.5% over the current contract expenses, with a monthly cost of $6,690. The machines would be the machines that we would own as part of this contract would still be provided with routine maintenance and parts throughout the new 4-year contract. Additionally, after the 4-year contract, Proven IT noted that they would either purchase the machines or would help us sell them. Proven IT also provided pricing to replace all Canon machines, including the 3 additional machines. That cost to replace all the machines with new Canon machines would be $8,540. Proven IT is also a vendor for Ricoh and Xerox machines, and so they provided pricing for these products as well, with the Canon machines still being the low cost. After review of the options, my recommendation would be to move forward with adding the 3 Canon machines and gaining ownership of the production machines and the district office copier. Over the life of that contract, we could save about $88,000. After that 4-year contract, the production machines and the district copier would be well at its life. And then my recommendation would be go out to RFP, as we're going to need to replace all the machines at that point in time. So if the board is open to that, then I would have that approved at the February board meeting.
Okay. Questions, comments, consensus?
I'm in agreement.
Sounds good to me. All right.
Fantastic.
All right, very good. Thank you, Dan. Okay, that takes us to the end of the agenda, but except we need to go into executive session. There'll be no, pardon me?
Before you enter into your executive session, can we just ask for your indulgence for a moment? We did have a model, I'm not sure if you've had it circulated yet. If you don't mind, I'll approach the podium here.
Sure.
We did have a model letter to go out to prospective businesses and a proposed schedule of the types of advertising recognition that you could get. Mr. Turney's made some copies of that for those of you in attendance. Anyone else? I have signed in at the back. My email address is available. We thought for your edification you could see what we're proposing as a template. Some of the things here as far as some of the dimensions of banners are still under consideration. But if it would help, we could certainly circulate those here, and before you go into executive session, then we can depart.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you very, very much. And we'll make sure that Kathy and and Gary get copies as well.
Yeah, never let it be said that the boosters wasn't available to have something as a handout for your event, so, for the meeting tonight. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure that I had only brought one copy, but Scott had said, oh, you do have that with you, so.
Quite all right.
Again, this is kind of a proposed model. This has been circulated among the boosters, kind of run by a few other folks as well, but we would like to share it with you. It gives you a little bit better idea of how we intended to approach this and what our concept is.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
for your
you, very
additional
much
time.
appreciated. Thank you. Okay, so there'll be no discussion after closed session. I'd like to make a recommended motion, move to closed session, that the Board of Education hold a closed session at 2029.
8:29.
8:29, sorry. 24-hour clock in my head. 8:29 for the purpose of, 1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees. Number 2, collective negotiating matters. Number 8, emergency security procedures. And number 11, litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds out that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting.
I think that's a new record for closed session topics.
Yeah. Would anybody like to? Do I hear a second?
I'll second, but only if it's guaranteed we're not more than half an hour. Bob promised these meetings would only go till 9.
No guarantees.
Okay. Sounds good. We have a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Casey Mayer.
Aye.
Ms. Doremus.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Mr. Nagel.
Aye.
Mr. Saik.
Aye.
Mr. Zuniga.
All right. Thank you. Motion passes. And we'll take a 3-minute break before we go into closed session. Thank you.
We're out of closed session.
We are out of closed session.
We're in open session now.
Okay. Return to open session. I'd like to recommend a motion to adjourn
At 10:10.
at 10:10.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Sure?
All right.
Motion passes.
Good job.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.